Dynasty Nerds on Bettor Sports Network.
All right, welcome back. It's Dynasty Nerds. It's the Bettor Sports Network. I am your host, Garrett Price. You can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Price. And man, Thursday's here. Thursday's here. You know it's a good day of the week because this is our opportunity to hang out. Peter, no, I have not gotten a haircut yet. There will be one before next time. I'm trying to space it out with vacation. So I have vacation in 2 weeks. So next week I want to get it so that way it's looking good for all the vacation because you know the wife, she's going to want to take a bunch of pictures and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the plan. So there will be a haircut next week. But great show planned for tonight. We have Dan Toomey from Dynasty Nerds. He's going to come on. He's done a lot of prospect profiles. And so he's been looking at these rookies in depth, not just surface level stuff that everyone knows about. He's been looking at a lot of these guys really, really in depth and really trying to make sure that he's got all these guys covered. So we're going to talk to him. Michael, what's up? So we're going to do that. And then we're going to have Dennis Bennett on. And what we're doing with Dennis Bennett, and I might even do a little bit of it before he gets on because I know that there were some AMAs. We'll save more of the trades for me and Dennis Bennett. But we're gonna be talking trades. So you can ask trades in the show. If you want to ask trades live during the show when I'm on with Dennis, you're more than welcome to. Or if you want to make sure that you get them answered as well, you can also put them in the Discord. So either way, you can make sure to get those questions on here, and we will talk through them. So a couple things that I want to go over before we get Dan on, though. We covered a lot of free agency last week, but there's been a lot of things that have been updated, a lot of things that have changed since that time. One of the biggest ones involves my Cleveland Browns. That's right. I'm a big Browns fan, and we made a pretty massive trade. Fork, what's up, man? Good to see you. The Browns made a pretty massive trade this past week. Not sure if you saw it. If you're listening to the show, you definitely saw it. Elijah Moore is now a Cleveland Brown, and basically what it took was their second round pick, and they got back Elijah Moore and a third round pick. So for me, value wise, absolutely love it. Absolutely love it for sure. Andrew Too True, how would you handle a team that you know needs to get younger, but you're still in a contending window? Top 3 dynasty GM, and you don't want to trade out of contention, but you still need some youth. Andrew, that is a fantastic question. If it's okay with you, and you can put in the chat, if you're like, bro, I can't wait, I need to know the answer now, then I will give my thoughts on it. But I might save it for after we have Dan on and once we get closer to when we have Dennis on. So if you're going to be on that whole time, which highly recommend you are, because I mean, Dan's awesome. Why would you want to miss that? But if you only got so much time, I'd be happy to answer now. So go ahead and put it in the chat. Let me know. But don't put Elijah Snore. Come on, Peter. You're better than that. Peter, you know what? If he's not on the show, all right, thank you, Andrew. Not on the show, he wants to be sarcastic. It's Mr. Sassafras over there. Although he still always compliments me on my look, so I can't be too mad. But Elijah Moore, this is a great deal from the Browns' perspective because this is a huge need for them. Huge need for them. Basically, the only established Dan inspired me to shave my beard into a sweet handlebar. You should do it too. Maybe I should. Sean, the producer, is saying Pete Sassafrasy. So he's turning it into a hashtag. It might start trending. We'll see. But all of this, getting back to Elijah Moore, this was a prospect that I really liked coming out. And you saw in his rookie campaign some really good things out of him. I mean, he had a couple games where he looked legitimately unstoppable. And we're talking like just no quarterback help. No quarterback help at all. We know Zach Wilson was there for part of it, but then they had other guys come in and out, inconsistency. But Elijah Moore looked great. And then Wilson came in, and I don't know if that was a confidence thing. I don't know if it was just he didn't mess with the offense. I don't know what it was. Dismal last year. Absolutely dismal. So lots of trade questions coming in. I will man, see, all these good questions are here now. I feel like I want to answer them. I'm going to try to save these guys. I'm going to try. So, Norvell, let's see who else has one. Andrew, I'm going to try to save these until after my segment with Dan. So I'm going to try to save them unless you're like, bro, I am an early to bed person. I get up at like 4 a.m. to go milk cows or, something. I grew up in the country. So that's what people that got up early. Most people now it's like working out. But when you grow up in the country, that's what people got up early for, was to milk cows. They get yeah, that's what they do. So I did not live on a farm, so I did not have to do that. Clear by my example of how to milk a cow. All of that being said, the Browns were in desperate need of a wide receiver too. I did not milk cows, Peter. I did not. I did help bale some hay. Basically, where I grew up, every day on my way to school, I would either pass a tractor or an Amish buggy every single day. We literally had bring your tractor to school day. This is not a joke. We would get extra days off during hunting season and fair season because people showed animals. Like, I grew up rural, like really, really rural. Okay. But all of that being said, the Browns, all they had was really Amari Cooper. They drafted David Bell last year, which I was never a big Bell guy. I know analytics loved him. I never really liked David Bell, but he didn't really show much of anything. Donovan Peoples-Jones shows flashes, but I think he's better to be that Z receiver. So you have your traditional X receiver, that's your main alpha receiver. Then you have your Z receiver, which is a guy on the opposite side, typically a deep threat type of vibe. And then you have your slot receiver, which will be Elijah Moore. Andrew saying that's a whole different world from myself growing up in Vegas. Yes, dude, that couldn't have been more opposite ends of the spectrum and growing up. Very different opportunities for fun, that's for sure. But so great move for the Cleveland Browns. Not sure why it makes sense for the Jets. I really assume that would be part of the deal to get Aaron Rodgers. Also, I thought they could probably get more. Like, I thought they could have just gotten a third straight up and not having to give anything back. And I get it. They got a second instead, but they had to give the third to also get it. So I don't know. I could go either way on it for the Jets, but I think they could have got a little bit more for a guy like him. So Dave Fork saying, I did 4-H sheep and probably deserved last place in showmanship. I was horrible. My sister did sheep for a couple years, but we didn't live on a farm. We lived in the country, but we didn't live on a farm. So we took like our old playhouse and we converted it into like a mini barn for the sheep. And that sheep was really dumb. It was a really like biblically speaking, when we're called sheep, I understand why people are called sheep, because sheep are really, really stupid animals. 4-H is basically that's a great question. It's basically a club for agriculture, specifically for like youth. So kids that like grow up showing like dairy cows and steers and heifers and all that kind of stuff, or sheep or hogs or chickens or all kinds of animals. It was their opportunity and their outlet for that. But they also did like service projects, like little field trips, things like that. So it was like a club that you could get involved with, but that was more centered around agriculture than anything else. So good question. See, this is why this show's fun, because when it's not live, I just keep talking about whatever I want to talk about. When we got this, I mean, who knows? I would have never suspected that we would be talking about 4-H on the Dynasty Nerds show. But here we are talking about 4-H, talking about animals. Yeah, I didn't. The funny thing is, even growing up a country kid, like I don't really like animals. Would you like me to ping the Discord announcements with the link, Garrett? Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Appreciate it, Peter. See, look at Peter being all nice now, making up for it. But I didn't like animals. I still really don't like animals. Currently in a Devi draft. Any Devi assets that you can think of? How deep are you in? Because the first couple of rounds aren't too bad, but then once you get deeper and deeper, it gets pretty tricky. So it depends on how deep you're in. If you're past round 2 or 3, I probably haven't done enough homework to be able to get you much there, buddy. So, but if it's in the first couple of rounds, I got you. Other moves that have happened since we talked about things last week. One of the ones I think is a little bit interesting, Damian Harris to the Buffalo Bills. I like that fit a lot. This is a team that really needed some help. Like, just hold on. Do you guys ever get like distracted because like you see like a message come through? This is not good for people with ADD like me. I get messages that come through and then I try to read and talk at the same time, and like multitasking is bad for me. But this Buffalo Bills team, they needed help at the running back position badly. They're good in the passing game. They've got James Cook. They're set there. But now the problem is they have had to use Josh Allen near the goal line a ton. That's not what you want for a guy that you're paying as much money as they're paying Josh Allen. And then at the end of games specifically, they are not able to run out the clock effectively at the end of games. They needed a bigger, more physical, bruising back. Devi players included in a dynasty draft. I'd say I'm about mid-second. Interesting. So you would be you're in mid-second of the startup draft, or you're mid-second of your Devi draft? Because those are two very different things. Peter, can we get a gif of Karen looking? That's what we need for social media. Me fake milking a cow, for sure. Andrew says, I've been working on my own podcast for a couple months now. Any advice for someone trying to get their voice heard in the FF industry? Yeah, there's a few great ways to get that done. One is consistency. Not just consistency with doing the podcast, but consistently active on social media. So that way people are aware of your show. And it's not just like, hey, let me always post my show, but interacting with trades and just growing more naturally. Second great way is to have on guests. Like if you'd like me to come on your show, I'd be happy to come on, because usually when people come on your show, they retweet it. And so more people discover your show from brands that have more followers retweeting it. So those are two really good ways, consistently active on social media, and to make sure that you're getting some guests to help get more eyeballs on your show is another good way right there. So like I mentioned before, Dan Toomey is going to be coming on any minute. In fact, Sean, go ahead. If I know Dan's actually already here, so I don't want to keep him waiting too long. I know we're a couple minutes early, but I know he's got stuff to do, kids and wife and all that stuff. So we can go ahead and bring him on. Dan, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? I'm just here for the farm talk, honestly.
You enjoying that?
Yeah, you starting a Farmville podcast soon?
You know, I might.
There's a market. There's a market for it, obviously.
There is. I need to expand my horizons a little bit. You know, the fantasy space is saturated. I think if I moved out into that, you know, I think I could build a good.
It's all about diversifying this time of year.
That's right. That's right. All right, Dan. Well, if you guys are not familiar with Dan's work, Dan does fantastic articles for Dynasty Nerds. He's getting even more into the live show space, not just here as a guest. But Dan, before we get into this, tell all these people what you're doing on draft night, because it is ambitious and I love it.
Yeah, so this is a project Garrett knows I've been working on for about a month now, and I'm finally at the point where I can start announcing it to everyone on these shows I go on. So NFL Draft Weekend, nights 1 and 2. That's Thursday, April 27th, and Friday, April 28th. Myself and Tim, another one of our staff writers, will be hosting a Dynasty Nerds watch-along experience live stream during the NFL Draft Live. We will be live for approximately 4 to 5 hours each night. We'll be reviewing the picks as they come in, providing live analysis. I have a wonderful panel of guests, both from Dynasty Nerds, other fantasy football experts, even some guys who work in the scouting community to, give some analysis on these players as they're picked live, give you background on any players you might not know a lot about. And it's just going to be a great experience. It's going to be, I was telling Peter about it, probably the most instantaneous dynasty analysis you'll find all spring.
Yeah.
So it's something I've been working on for a while, and I'm very, very excited to share with all you guys once we go live with that.
Just Josh said that he looked up a farmers only fantasy, and it was not the type of league that he expected. So just saying. Okay. All right. So I want to get into some of these prospects that you've been writing about, because you've covered a lot already.
Yeah.
Put a lot of time and effort into it. Who was the one player that when you started your profile, you were like, we'll see. And by the time you finished working on the profile, you kind of talked yourself into this prospect?
Oh man, that's tough. Because a lot of these guys, so when I go into film, I go in wanting to like a player. I feel like if you start from a point of negativity, you're just going to fulfill your own prophecy, and you're just only going to see the negatives for each player. So I truly do try to go into film with a positive mindset for a player. I mean, because let's be honest, even these guys are going in the 7th round. They're still in the top 5% of football players in the world. And they're all very talented people. Somebody that I'm working on right now, and I haven't released the article yet, is actually Parker Washington, the wide receiver out of Penn State. And I got to say, he is an amazing athlete. I was very impressed with his hands and his catch radius for being a smaller prospect. Everything thrown his way, he found a way to make a catch and to pull it in. And if he gets the ball in his hands, it reminds me a lot of like a Deebo Samuel. Like he's got that running back mentality when it comes to yards after the catch, which, I mean, finding the next Deebo is great and all, but the problem is I don't see a big role for him in the NFL at the next level with his size. I see him as a very great special teams contributor. I'm just not sure that he's going to be able to find a role in an NFL offense that is going to provide consistent fantasy production. So have you dug into Parker Washington at all? It's a guy that I love him as an athlete and as an actual football player. I just worry about his fantasy ceiling and being able to produce fantasy points.
Yeah, I am just now starting my receivers deep dive. So I've done surface level stuff on most, if not all of those guys. But I'm just now starting my deep dive. So I haven't done my deep dive on Washington yet. But from what I've seen, he can make some fantastic catches. But you're right. I do worry about the ability to make a difference, a significant difference at the next level. Like when we're talking ceiling, like I think best case scenario for an NFL team, if everything worked out perfect, he's a wide receiver 2 on his own team. So then for fantasy purposes, you're looking at best case scenario, low end wide receiver 3, high end wide receiver 4. And that's the difficult part, is once you get into that range, yeah, they're usable, but that's the ceiling. Like there's plenty of other guys where, yeah, they could flame out of the league and be nothing, but their ceiling at least gives me a chance to be a high end wide receiver 2 or, something like that. So I do think that is one of the bigger concerns, is you do look at certain players and you're like, just how are they going to win at the next level? And I just don't know that he has enough to win in one particular area consistently at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I hate doing like ceiling comps of players that are well known, but I also feel like ceiling comps are the comps that are most relatable to like the fan base and people who watch shows like this. I want to say Deshaun Jackson as a type of career for him, where he is an electric returner, and he's going to have those games where he catches a 74-yard bomb for a touchdown, and is the hot ad or the hot trade candidate the next week, but then the next week is going to have 2 targets. I just see that being his role. And the other thing is, when I go into film, I like to look at other outlets and what they think of these players. And one outlet I
Sure,
enjoy
absolutely.
looking at is PFF because they're analyzing these guys from a pure football standpoint. They don't care about fantasy output or anything
Right.
like that. Just how is he going to contribute to his NFL team? And they had Parker Washington ranked quite high. He was wide receiver 11 on their
Okay.
big board right now. So I kind of always look at those rankings before I go into film to give myself a gauge of what type of football player am I going to expect. And like I said, I think he's going to be an amazing football player who's going to go early day 3 and contribute to his NFL team. I'm just not sure if the consistency is going to be there to make him a fantasy viable asset.
Well, Matt Deutsch says that he's loving guys that return kicks because he always plays in leagues that have return yardage.
That's
So,
when I was writing my article. One of the things I pointed out was like, if you are one of those people who plays in a league that has return yardage points, this is a player you're going to want to look at drafting in like your late second, early third round for sure.
there you go. There you go. All right. One of the guys that you covered, that the Nerds Pod, when we covered him, we weren't the most glowing about this player. What were your thoughts on Chase Brown when you wrote up his article?
Yeah, Chase is interesting. So the role I picture Chase Brown being successful in is a first and second down back, part of a rotation on a committee. Um, for a offense that is probably going to be running some sort of wide zone running scheme. Um,
He's
I know
got the
you,
speed for that. That makes
yeah,
perfect sense.
I know you guys discussed the pass protection issues, and this is actually something I wanted to ask you because I don't know if you've done any research on
Yeah.
the topic because I know myself and even you guys, a lot of people say like pass protection is something you can learn. Like we have to remember when these players get drafted, they have the entire rookie training camp to learn and pick up new skills
For
that
sure.
maybe they didn't have the time to work on in college. Now, what I want to do research on one day is pass protection one of those things that they can learn and pick up on once they get to the NFL level? Or is it just like like you said, pass catching? It's a yes or no type of thing. Is pass protection like that where he can't do it and unfortunately he's not going to be able to pick it up? That's something I don't have an answer for
Yeah.
and would really like to look back on like historical comps and see if I could figure out if that's something players generally improve upon once they do get to the league, because his big issue is going to be that the coaching staff is going to have no trust putting him on the field on third down or any situation where he's going to be asked to protect, potentially a $50 million a year asset in the backfield. That's the other thing you got to remember. College coaches are putting him out there at Illinois for, no offense to Illini football, but I can't name their quarterback from this past season.
Right.
But, protecting that kid is a lot different than going out there and you got, Patrick Mahomes that you're investing $55 million a year into.
Right.
It's a big, big difference and a big, big ask. So he has enough athleticism that I can see him being the type of player almost like a Raheem Mostert, where he spends some time in the league and he bounces from roster to roster. And if he catches the right injury bug ahead of him on the right team, then you'll be able to get something out of him for a
Mhm.
few weeks. But unfortunately, what would you put that as a fourth round value? A flyer just to keep
Yep.
at the end of your bench in case of an injury concern. And like you mentioned on the podcast, I talked to him personally. I sat down with the kid. Great story. Him and his twin brother moving from Canada to Florida to play high school football just to get themselves in front of college scouts. It's amazing. His father played in the CFL also, so he's a great guy, and I would love to see him succeed. Just
Yeah.
you got to just tell it like it is, unfortunately, when it comes to these prospects.
Yeah. Well, one that has definitely seen his stock rise over the past few weeks, and specifically during Combine Week, Anthony Richardson. You broke him down in pretty good detail. Where did you end up landing on him? Because there's a case to be made that he could be the best quarterback in this class, but there's a lot of risk there too. Where did you come out on it?
So what I've realized with Anthony Richardson is my quarterback rankings are going to vary this year depending on league format and what kind of team I have. Now, in one quarterback leagues, Anthony Richardson is probably the only one I'm targeting early because my theory there, and I think I've heard you talking about this before, is in a one quarterback league, you could replace your starting quarterback position with a veteran for cheap.
Yep.
Like think about what would it cost you to get a Kirk Cousins right now in one quarterback league? Late second?
Oh, geez. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
exactly. And you're going to get, low end quarterback one numbers out of that. I actually was looking at one of my one quarterback teams this past week, and I got Justin Fields, and I looked back, and he was like a late second, mid second rookie pick. And now if you look on Underdog, he's going as the quarterback 4 right now in
Sure.
redraft leagues. So that's why with one quarterback leagues, I shoot for the upside, and Anthony Richardson is the upside quarterback in this class. Now, Superflex leagues where I have earned a top 5 pick, my roster is not that great.
Yeah.
In that case, I'm looking for a Stroud or a Young. I'm looking to add an asset to my team that I know is going to retain value and that either is going to help me win down the road or that I know I can potentially move next year around this time and recoup similar assets. Anthony Richardson, I can just see, as much as I see a world where he hits that ceiling, I also see a world where he's very raw as a college prospect.
Mhm.
I think one of the funniest quotes I saw on during Combine weekend is somebody was like, for all of you that were impressed with the power on that throw, the clip that was on Twitter from the Combine,
Mhm.
us Florida Gator fans have been watching that all season long when he overthrows his wide receivers by 15 yards. None of us are surprised by that throw. We are just surprised that it landed in the receiver's hands.
Yeah.
And that's true. And everyone likes to pull up the Josh Allen comps for Anthony Richardson, and we just have to remember, for every Josh Allen that worked out, there was players that were toolsy and did not work out.
Sure.
It's completely what system they're going into. Josh Allen was lucky enough to fall in with Brian Dable and Ken Dorsey and the right coaching staff, and they were able to mold him into what we see today. And can Anthony Richardson become that? Yes, but I don't know what coaching staff he's landing on right now.
Right.
And I also don't have enough intimate knowledge of the way franchises run to even know what coaching staff I'm going to be looking for to determine if that Josh Allen ceiling is even an outcome. So he's going to be the most polarizing quarterback prospect this draft season. And it kind of comes down to how risk averse you are. If I have a solid starting quarterback 1, let's say for my quarterback 1, I have a Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow, and I have the chance to add a second quarterback as my quarterback 2 from this draft class, I might take the swing on Anthony Richardson, knowing I have another quarterback to fall back on.
Mhm.
If my starting quarterback, say I'm rolling out Trey Lance and Baker Mayfield as my 2 starting quarterbacks right now,
Yeah.
I'm looking for a guy that I know is going to be with his franchise for at least a couple of years. So I'm looking at a Stroud or a Young in that case. So everything you read about Richardson as a prospect is correct. He's super athletic, super big arm, super raw, and it kind of comes down to how risk adverse you're going to be in your fantasy drafts this year.
Well, Kyle in the comments is actually asking about that. Is it worth taking the risk, basically? Because if he fails, you'll get Caleb Williams next year, or he didn't mention him, but Drake May next year. And for me personally, I understand that. And if you are someone that likes to take more risks, I have no issue with doing that. I hate missing with top picks. Like specifically if I have a top 3, top 5 pick, I really don't want to miss, because if my team's that bad, one quarterback in Stroud or in Bryce Young is not going to make a big enough difference in that first year to propel me that high anyway. Chances are rookie quarterbacks never perform that well. So either way, I'm still probably picking towards the bottom. But I understand the sentiment of it. Look, we're just trying to get the best possible players. So I'm going to keep shooting from the moon. So I don't blame him at all for doing that. Where do you land on that?
So first of all, is Kyle's question regarding like the NFL franchise that drafts him or his dynasty team? I was just a little
That's
confused
a
about
good question. I
which he was
assumed
talking
for
about.
fantasy purposes, but that's
I initially read it as NFL franchise, where
oh,
he
okay.
bombs out rookie year and you have a Josh Rosen situation, where you just spend a top 10 draft capital on a quarterback, and then, you got Kyler Murray sitting there
Yeah.
at one overall. For my dynasty fantasy team, I mean, if you're picking 101 this year and you've actually, or I guess you'd be picking, let's say 102. Let's assume Bijan goes
Bijan,
101.
sure.
You're picking 102. I feel like the teams that are picking in the bottom two, like you're not at that point in the rebuild where adding this one piece is going to make you a playoff contender.
Mhm.
I feel like even if Anthony Richardson hits his ceiling, fulfilling that one quarterback spot isn't going to push enough points onto your roster to knock you out of a top 5 pick next year. Personally, now, I mean, obviously, you can make other moves throughout the
Sure.
summer and change everything. But if we're trying to keep this case in one variable and not try to account for a bunch of different things, I don't know if that addition of an Anthony Richardson is going to change a lot for your dynasty roster. And this is an easy trap to fall into, because I know you're somebody who's followed the college game for a while, and you just look as recently as last year, 2 years ago, with Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell.
Sure.
This time, was it 2 years ago? I guess people were saying like, "Oh wow, Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell, top 2 NFL draft picks. Those are great quarterbacks for your superflex leagues next year." Now, I'm not saying that Caleb and Drake are those guys, although I guess now the similarities are funny, considering Spencer and Caleb played at Oklahoma.
That
Drake
is
and
true.
Sam played in North Carolina. Wow, that's a funny
That
realization
is
right
really
there.
funny.
But things change. Things change very often.
Sure.
And honestly, I don't know if you saw the NFL scouts, what they were saying about Marvin Harrison Jr. coming out of the Ohio State Pro Day, but God, could we be having a Bijan type conversation with him next year?
100%. I already did my nerd score just based off his first 2 years, and he would be far and away the highest receiver I've ever graded.
Yeah. So
he looks nuts.
what I'm trying to say is just things change. I know Dynasty is like a long-term type of format, but things do change so quickly in this game of football that it's so hard to say, I don't want to take this player here because then I can't get this player a year from now, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I would just be taking a decision based on my current roster at the moment, and that's kind of the way I would go with that.
All right. So Matt asks us, because he's in need of some quarterback help. He asked us to rank the quarterbacks for Superflex. So my rankings for Superflex quarterback as of this moment, that could change with the NFL draft, but as of this moment, it would go Stroud, Bryce Young, Richardson, then Levis. And then I want to mention Hooker because I don't think Hooker's as far off as a lot of people do. I think he, especially had he not gotten hurt, he might be in the same conversation as Levis and Richardson.
Have you seen I know like Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper?
Yeah, he just put him in there first.
I was gonna say, did you see that?
I did.
And then you see what happened to Levis.
Yeah. He fell into what was it, 20s?
19 to the Bucks.
Yeah.
It was funny. One of the first comments I saw on the article was like, nobody will ever mock Will Levis in the top 10 ever again now after saying that. So yeah, I think the league might be higher on Hooker than any of us are willing to admit right now. But I mean, that's the great part about the NFL draft, and that's why you guys should come to the live stream, because there's so much that could change.
That was a good segue. Very professional there. Look at you.
You got Pete Carroll taking selfies with Stroud and Young. What's that about? Is Seattle about to be on the move? It's a wild world NFL draft season, especially when we get prospect fatigue with a lot of these players. So my current quarterback rankings, I have Anthony Richardson at the top. I am willing to take that risk and get that next great fantasy asset at the quarterback position for my team. After that, I think we fall into lockstep, because then I got Stroud, Young, Levis, and then Hooker in that order as well. Cool. But like I said, it's just a matter of how risk adverse you are, because you mentioned with your top couple of picks, you want to hit, you want to get a hit. And with my top couple picks, I'm trying to maybe make a move that's going to get me out of those top picks next year,
Sure.
even faster.
Sure. Nope. Makes perfect sense. All right. So another player that you covered that I have not done a lot of work on yet. So I'm interested to hear you talk about him. Rashee Rice out of SMU. I, to be honest, I've seen a highlight tape. That's it. That's
Mhm.
literally all I've seen. I haven't done, my deep dive for receivers like I said earlier. What are we thinking about this kid?
So I was hoping you were going to say you watched his tape because I had one very specific
Oh
question that
no.
I want to make sure I'm not the only one who sees this.
All right.
Um,
Maybe I'll plug my ears while you tell everyone, and then I'll say no. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
um, I see a lot of lack of effort on this tape.
Ooh, I don't
I
like that.
see, and now the thing is, that's why I want like someone like you to watch the tape and like either be like, Dan, you know what you're talking about, or like, yeah, I see that also. I see there's a lot of plays where let's say he's boundary side and there's a
Mhm.
screen to the wide side. He knows the screen's going the wide side. He's not even moving off his starting position.
Hmm.
And I don't want to be like that old school like stickler coach, like, I
Yeah.
need maximum effort all the time, but like, dude, sell your routes once in a while.
Yeah.
It's just that was the first thing I noticed is that he doesn't make a huge effort to sell his routes if he's not going to be involved in the offense
Uh,
on that particular play.
yeah. I have seen that with players in the past, so I'll definitely keep an eye out for that. And that is always a little bit concerning. Now there are specific times where the way, like, I know Tennessee does this at times, where basically how their scheme is they're just taking halves of the field, and so sometimes because of that, but still, like, I still like it when guys are at least giving me a little bit to like delay the DB by a second or two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I like to see a little bit of that. So I can understand why that would be, a little disconcerting for you.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to watch him.
Um, but besides that, great hands, great body control. He's like a contortionist when he's in the air, um, which is great. You put the ball out anywhere and he's going to get it, and he's got the long arms for it too. He's not a burner. He's not going to beat you with his speed. He reminds me of, like I said, I hate to do ceiling comps again, but a player you're very familiar with, Jarvis Landry.
Okay.
For Rashee Rice to be successful, I think he's going to have a Jarvis Landry type of year where he is just a high volume target hog. Not a lot of yards after catch, but just, will have games consistently where he has 12, 13 targets. And it's not going to be a lot of deep passes, but he's going to be that guy who's going to move the sticks for you. If you're going out there in 2nd and 6, you need 6 yards, he's going to pick up 7. You go out there on 3rd and 3, you need 5 yards, he's going to pick up 7. So it's going to be, he's not going to be a flashy player, I don't think, but I think in full PPR leagues, he's going to be like that consistent guy on your bench where if you have an injury somewhere, you're like, all right, I can plug in Rice and get 10 points this week. I know I'll get 10 points from Rice this week. I'm not going to get 15. I'm not going to get 18. I'm going to get 10, and I'll just be happy with that.
Now, do you ever worry? Because I do worry about these types of players at times, because there's some guys where you see them do it and you're like, yeah, that'll still translate to the next level. Sometimes I worry with target hog guys, what happens if they don't get that kind of volume? Is
Yeah.
he a guy that you think is talented enough where he's going to still command that type of volume? Or is it more like, hey, this is just best case scenario how he would win?
So this is best case scenario how
Okay.
he will win because I think targets are earned. You have to be talented enough to earn targets in an offense. I don't think there's any offensive coordinator out there is like, oh well, Rashi can catch a lot of passes. Let's go, screen up 10 crosses for him. Where if they have another wide receiver who's more talented on the team who could potentially take one to the house every once in a while, they're going to look that side of the field. So I think that he also has a ton of experience in college. He
Mhm.
was a senior, and he has a lot of records at SMU, and SMU has produced a lot of big time wide receivers. Emmanuel Sanders, Cortland Sutton, James Prochet. Like, there's been talent coming out of SMU that have been successful at the next level. So the experience and the pedigree gives me faith that he will find his spot on an NFL team. But then I go back to the, lack of hustle on those plays thing. I'm like, is he also gonna be the type of guy where, like, maybe in camp he's not putting in full effort? It's gonna get chewed out all the time. So, I mean, but that's why we scout on film, and the general managers get to interview the guys and get inside their heads, and they'll know better than we do. So that's why you kind of have to let draft capital tell you what the NFL thinks of him. He's the type, like you talked about Donovan Peoples-Jones on the Browns before, who fell to the 6th round. Extremely athletic prospect. I was fine taking him in fantasy drafts because I knew he was a great athlete. If Rice falls to the 6th round, I might just be out because he doesn't have that athletic upside to save him. Sense. And if he's in the 6th round, then that tells me that the NFL GMs are also worried about, stuff that we've mentioned already on the stream.
No, that makes perfect sense. Real quick before I get you out of here, Michael Mayer, still your number 1 tight end?
No, that's
where you
changed. Have him? I got him tight end 2.
Okay, so Dalton. I'm assuming Kincaid.
Yep, Dalton Kincaid is my tight end 1 right now. Now, I will say, I don't know what you're reading the situation is. The back injury, I haven't seen the clearest details about what exactly is going on with Kincaid in the back injury.
Yeah,
and that is my concern. So I have him tight end 1, but I can very quickly move him down depending on how this back injury thing plays out, because I'll see a little blurb every here and there, but I haven't seen like a solid concrete story. Like, this is what happened. This is when it happened. And, the stories I've seen is he's ready for rookie camp at the end of May.
Okay.
And that's the only thing I've seen so far.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on as we go into the NFL draft.
That is something that, you've seen guys that have that issue chronically. And that is always a little bit, it's kind of like some of the guys with like soft tissue, always soft tissue issues, like there's certain guys that just seem to have that one nagging thing that they just can't get rid of. So we'll have to wait and see how all of that plays out.
I will tell everyone, though, if you're light on your tight end scouting, I will give you just one game to watch. Kincaid, Utah versus USC Pac-12 championship game. That game is like,
didn't he have like 12 catches or something ridiculous?
Yes. And the best part is you can watch Caleb on the other side, and it's just for Devi and Dynasty Film, it's a one-stop shop. I highly recommend that game. I've watched it at least 3 times, honestly.
That's awesome. I was watching Travis Dye the other night, prepping for the shows coming up this week, and got to watch Caleb Williams during that. I was like, he is really fun.
I know.
By the way, Travis Dye, good at catching the ball, good in pass pro, not good at anything else. All right. Well, I think that wraps up our time here. Dan, real quick, remind everyone where you're at. Anything else you want to plug, or, in case somebody came late, if you want to plug the stream again, anything like that, let the people know.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention real fast, Garrett and I were talking about this earlier with the mustache thing. The owner of my restaurant, he does a fundraiser in March for multiple sclerosis. We do mustaches for MS. singleparentswithms.com. He does some great stuff helping people out. He's raising some money. So any love on that website, I would truly appreciate from anybody. For myself, at DanT_NFL, you can find me on Twitter. Super active right now. Plenty of rookie profiles, preparing for our draft live stream. It's like I tell everyone, this is peak content season for the Dynasty Nerds, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on again, man. We will definitely get you on again soon. And we'll be discussing, I'm sure, probably more prospects, because that's what's most fun.
That's the good stuff. All right. You guys take care. Thanks for having me out.
Yep. We'll see you, buddy. All right. Before we head to break, just want to remind everyone that you need to update your app. Yes, update the Bettor Sports Network app to be sure you have all the newest features we have developed to make sure that your experience can be the best it can be. Update your Bettor Sports Network app today. All right, we are going to take just a few minutes here, take a quick little break. Hang with us. When we get back, I'm going to start getting to some of these questions that I have not gotten to get to. I'm going to try to save the trade ones for myself and Dennis, but I'll get to some of the other ones on my own there. and we'll be dealing with that as soon as we get back.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray. Weekdays at noon Eastern, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
We're talking catchers. And Ray, as we jump into this position, traditionally, this has been a position that you kind of say, well, there's like 2-3 guys and the rest is just junk. And gosh, I'm in a 2-catcher league. How in the hell am I going to fill 2 spots, in this 12-man league? And it's such a struggle after the 8th catcher. Like, fair to say it's different now? I mean, I know it's not great, but it feels like the best catcher pool I've seen in a while, like at least a half decade, in terms of, wow, we've got some hitters, we've got guys, and I know they're not exclusively catchers, and the DH is helping, certainly, but it looks like we're going, 10, 12 deep at least of feeling good about catchers, I think.
I tier the players at positions because I think that's a really good way to look at them. And when you tier players, you're basically putting guys that are likely to produce similar levels of production in the same tier. One guy might be batting average, one guy might be home runs, that kind of a thing, but basically the same end result value-wise. I have 2 guys on the elite tier. I then have 8 guys on the next tier. And then I go all the way to 22 on the 3rd tier, which basically almost gets us to that, 2 catchers in the 24, 12-team league kind of thing. So I agree with you. And I think that even if you look beyond that, there's some names that are outside my top 20 that I could easily see being top 15 catchers this year. So yeah, it's not wow, but it's good overall. We got some young guys coming in that are dynamic players to help out some of the older guys that are still hanging on. It's better than it has been. I agree with you.
It's actually very young, Ray. And that, I mean, you look at Varsho, Rauschman, William Contreras, Kirk, Melendez, Cal Riley's semi-young, but Keibert Ruiz. And there's still other guys coming up that are in the minors right now. That's, we used to always say all these young catchers, just catch, don't worry about hitting. These guys are coming up with some skill sets as well.
Yeah, and the game is different now, right? Back in the day, you were an old dude that had no athleticism. You're good at blocking balls, and we hoped you'd pop 15 home runs, right? That was kind of the MO. Now it's different. Now we get more athletic guys. It's not that, you have to be some dumpy, slow guy catching. You can be an athletic player that can play other positions, as you noted. So I think the youngsters are bringing more athleticism, kind of like the tight end position in football, right? It's like there is more athleticism at the tight end spot than there was 25 years ago. I think it's the same way at the catcher spot.
Make bets and follow your fantasy team while you buy, sell, and trade collectibles in real time. Only on Bettor Sports Network. Dynasty Nerds.
All right, we're back. Segment number 2. Thank you so much to Dan for coming on, joining us on the Dynasty Nerds Bettor Sports Network show. Want to remind you guys real quick, Bettor Fantasy Baseball Draft. We're getting you ready for the 2023 Major League Baseball season with Bettor Fantasy Baseball Draft. Follow pick-by-pick coverage and learn winning strategies from Kyle Elfrink, Johnny VTV, as the BSN hosts and producers compete against the sharpest baseball analysts, the Bettor Fantasy Baseball Draft, part of our Bettor Baseball Preview, which is absolutely free. Watch it now at bettorsports.com. All right, let's get to some of these questions. I know that there were some in here that were trade related. I'm going to save those and the ones in the Discord for my time with Dennis Bennett. But Better Boss asks, I have Jordan Love and Brock Purdy and the number 1 pick. Should I take a quarterback or Bijan? In my drafts, you'll hear me say this over and over. I'm always taking the best available player. I don't care what position they play. So in this situation, I'm still drafting Bijan. But I think your best option is to trade back. If you can trade back, because look, there are going to be people that want Bijan Robinson. So trade back to 2, trade back to 3, and get yourself a quarterback there, plus pick up some extra assets. So that would be what I would do for sure. All right. Andrew Too True. How would you handle a team that you know needs to get younger, but you're still in a contending window. Top 3 in Dynasty GM, but you don't want to trade out of contention, but I still need youth. This is a situation that I've found myself in several different times. Actually, one of my teams right now is in a very similar position where I have some awesome veterans. Very little youth on the team, though. Very little youth. And so what my recommendation in this situation would be is you have to go either all in or all out. Because what is probably going to happen is it sounds like you're kind of riding the fence. And what it's going to do is you're not going to win a ship, but you're also not going to get the amount of youth and youngsters that you need. So you have to make a concerted, you have to decide in your soul what you're doing, all in or all out. My guess is if you are questioning, chances are you've probably put your team too far gone and you're holding on, but the wheels could fall off any moment. So it might be time to maybe enter an early rebuild unless you really think that you can win it all. So, but you got to go all in or all out. I wish it was easy to do both. And every once in a while you can't. Every once in a while you could say, I have Devontae Adams. I'm going to trade him for the 1-8, and I'm trying to think of a young receiver that would be a good addition. Treylon Burks. Let's say 1-8 and Treylon Burks. That might be a good way to balance that. But still, are you going to get the production out of Treylon Burks that you were going to get out of Devontae Adams? Probably not. You're probably not going to get the same production. So are you going to really have a shot to win it this year? He said he's coming off back-to-back ships, though. That three-peat is sweet. So you got to make the all in or all out decision, my man. All in or all out. So let me get to a couple of these questions that are in the Discord now. Like I said, I'm going to try to save the trade ones for later. Let me make sure I got the right ones here. All right. So actually, one of the guys that's been in here, Sedated Fork says, with JSN's strong pro day performance and a landing spot unclear, rank these wide receivers: JSN, Drake London, Christian Watson, and Kadarius Toney. So real quickly for me, Toney is easily the last one at this point. Could he overperform? Absolutely. But he's just shown me nothing from a consistency standpoint, lacking health. Like there's a lot of question marks there. So he's clearly fourth for me. And Christian Watson's clearly third, because as much as he's at an awesome rookie season, losing Aaron Rodgers is huge. We'll see what kind of chemistry he has with Jordan Love. We just don't know at this point. So then that puts us to JSN and Drake London. This is where it gets really difficult for me. Drake London already showed that he is a legitimate wide receiver asset. Legitimate one. But we're likely going to get another rough season as far as quarterback play. I like Desmond Ridder as much as the next guy, but I don't necessarily trust him to be a legitimate fantasy quarterback that's going to help his assets. That's why it's still tough to trust him. It's still tough to trust Kyle Pitts. But that being said, we just don't know about JSN. We don't know where he's going to land. We haven't seen him play a single snap. Now, I think he is absolutely legitimate. Like, he is a legitimate wide receiver. He is incredibly safe. I don't see a situation where he busts. So that's where that gets really difficult for me, because I think they are really in the same tier. They're in the same tier for me. Right now, I am going to say that I am going to lean Drake London, but it is by the closest of hairs. So I will say Drake London, JSN, Christian Watson, and then Kadarius Toney. But put in the chat, what do you guys think? Is that the order that you would agree with as well, or would you guys have it slightly different? Is the hinge point those top two guys, or are the other ones a little closer for all of you? So really, really tough one there for me. All right, another question here. Who's the running back people are not thinking about in this class? So there's a guy that we have not covered yet. But I want to talk about him a little bit because I think a guy that isn't getting talked about enough, but should be in a very similar tier as Roshan, Tank Bigsby, like those guys, is Dwayne McBride. Dwayne McBride is not going to be this absolute burner. But he's a beast. I mean, he breaks tackles. And I get it, smaller school, but they played LSU. And he broke crazy tackles against LSU. His contact balance is the best in the class. And this is a class with Bijan Robinson in it. The highest grade I gave in contact balance in this class was to Dwayne McBride. So I would say he's a guy to keep an eye on. I don't think he's been getting enough love. I don't think people have been talking about him enough. Now, there's some concerns. He's not a burner. And there's more fumbling issues than I would like. And he doesn't catch the ball a lot. Hardly at all. So that's the issue, is for somebody that you're going to want to be a 3-down contributor, which granted, almost none of these guys are going to be 3-down contributors. Basically Bijan. I don't know that anyone else will be a 3-down contributor. But I think he's one that has been not talked about quite enough. I see some people talking Kendre Miller. I get it. I get the Kendre Miller love. And what's appealing about him is he's a good size speed combo. There's some lack of refinement in his game that worries me a little bit. And I don't know if he does any one thing well enough to be like, this guy is going to win this way consistently at the next level. And so I think that's the thing that does worry me a little bit with Kendre. I think he's a good player. He just reminds me of a consistent backup in the NFL, not a guy that is getting a lot of run, more than 3 or 4 carries, 5 carries a game. So that's what worries me a little bit about Miller. Another guy that I don't think is getting enough love is Devon Achane. I keep saying Devon, but it's Devon. He's a guy that I've really liked for a long time. I think that he's really talented. I think he plays bigger than his size would indicate, and he's an absolute burner. Really liked his vision in the hole. So he's another one that I would put in there that I don't think is getting quite enough love from what they deserve. Kyle asks, we think Bijan is already at peak value being in first rounds in most startups. Yeah. There's really nowhere else to go for him. Like, how much more value can he really gain in a startup? He's going first round. If he's not going first round, he's going early second round. But most of the startups I'm seeing, he is the first running back off the board. You can't do better than being the first running back off the board. I guess you could jump into the top 5 of a super flex draft, but I just don't know that anyone. I think we've gotten to the point where people taking running backs that high in super flex leagues is more or less done. So I just don't know how much more value he can gain. So that is the tricky part, is when you draft him, I don't think he's going to depreciate, but he's not going to gain a bunch of value either. So that is one of the tricky parts about Bijan Robinson and any of these young running backs that come out with this much hype, is there's nowhere to go for them but down. I shouldn't say that. He could maintain, and I believe he will, because I do believe he is that talented. But saying, oh, well, I'll wait, 6 months from now and I'll get another first. Probably not. You're probably going to get similar to what you would get for him before he even entered the league. This one I thought was an interesting question. Avatar List says, what's the buy-in on your leagues? I've had this question a couple times before, and I think sometimes people think because I'm in the fantasy space that I'm doing like these crazy buy-ins where it's $2,000 on this buy-in and stuff like that. And most of my leagues are $30 to $50 buy-ins. 30 to $50. Nothing too expensive, nothing too crazy. 30 to $50 is what I do with most of them. Now I am in a couple that are 100 or so. But that's really it. And honestly, a lot of the fantasy people that I know do the same. There are a couple that will get into bigger leagues, but if they do, they're only doing a couple leagues that are $500, $700. There are guys I know that do that. So I don't want to say, none of them do that. No, there are plenty of guys that do that. But I would say for every one that plays in $500 plus leagues, there's 3 or 4 that don't. So I think it is probably more the norm that guys don't play in super crazy high leagues. CT Lee IV. If you have London and Pitts, do you keep both or do you trade one? If I'm able to, because this isn't specific, I guess it's kind of a trade question, but it's more of a general philosophy. I'm open to keeping 2 assets on the same team. And I think both are good assets. But right now, these are 2 guys that can fetch starting caliber players. And we don't know that they're going to both be able to put up starting caliber numbers, especially on the same week where it's looking kind of likely that Desmond Ridder is probably going to be their starting quarterback. So I would say I would look to be trading one. Chances are Drake, but if you get a crazy offer for Pitts, I'm fine with that too. But that is something that I would be looking into just because it's going to be tough to get both of those guys to produce on the same week for your fantasy team. And that's just, you're almost guaranteeing week in, week out, you're going to have one spot, if not 2, if that team does terrible. But at least one spot that's going to get you a pretty lame total. So Data Forecasts, if you win, what do you treat yourself on? Just more startups? So you're saying if I win the title in a league, what is like my go-to reward for myself if I win? Am I understanding that correctly? If so, the first thing I do is super boring. Usually I bank that money for next year's startups. So, if let's say it's a $50 league and I win it and I bring home, let's say it's $350 that you would bring home from that league. I usually will make sure that I set aside most of that money for next year's startups. I do end up adding a startup or 2 every year, just because I love the startup process. Unfortunately, I don't leave leagues very often. I did leave a couple this year. I don't do it very often. The reason I left them this year, one was an IDP league, and I really just, even though I played linebacker in college and I'm a defensive-minded guy, I tend to not enjoy the IDP format. Partly because it's really hard to figure out what the scoring system is league to league. It's tough to because I like keeping track of how my teams are doing in my head. I can't do all of that with defensive players based on tackles and sacks and interceptions. I can't keep track of all of that in my head. Whereas Red Zone is keeping me up to date on all of the things that are going on. So that's the first thing I do. With anything that I win that year is make sure that all my startups are covered for the following year. Then usually what I'll do is I'll take whatever bit I have left. Some years it's more than others. Some years it's I'm in the hole. But what I'll typically do then after that is the wife and I will go out to eat, or usually it's like a date night is kind of something that that I tend to do is usually something on date night because look like we just got we've got lightning and thunder here. Hopefully the stream stays good. Let me know if anything's off. But yeah, we got some thunder and lightning going on outside. Peter's saying, is this pre or post taxes? I mean, the leagues give me the money pre-taxes because it's at the end of the year. So, yeah. Spend $350 on different Dynasty Nerd shirts in different colors. I like that. Perfect. Just buy more nerd shirts. That's what we should all be doing. That's Twin, and I have, how do you pronounce that? Calibri? Twin Calibri UK. Yeah, we do have a ridiculous amount of Dynasty Nerd shirts. I don't even know, like, if you legitimately bought every single Dynasty Nerd shirt at its full price, I don't even know if $350 would be enough. That's pretty wild. That's a lot of shirts that we have. We've gone from pre-taxes to pre-Texas, which pre-Texas means like Native Americans, like the first Americans type stuff. So I have no idea what you guys are talking about. But to be fair, the show goes off the rails so often that it really doesn't surprise me much anymore. Peter said, if I win the league that Josh and I are in, I'll buy every Dynasty Nerd shirt. Wow. I'm going to hold him to that. Guys, because he's going to try to weasel out of that. I'm not going to let him. He's going to need to buy all of them. Have you personally had any forfeits for losing leagues? What do you mean by forfeits for losing leagues? Yeah, I'm not sure. Have you personally had any forfeits for losing leagues? Yeah, maybe rephrase that because I don't fully know what you mean in that question, Twin. But all of that being said, I do want to make sure that I get this read in again this hour, and then I'm good on my reads, guys, because I got reads I got to make sure I do every hour. Sometimes just one a show, but the Bettor Fantasy Baseball Draft. And guys, my fantasy league is drafting next Wednesday. So it's my one baseball league that I do because I can't do any more than that. But we're getting you ready for the 2023 Major League Baseball season with the Bettor Fantasy Baseball Draft. Follow pick-by-pick coverage and learn winning strategies from Kyle Elfrink and Johnny VTV as the BSN hosts and producers compete against the sharpest baseball analysts. The Bettor, this is why. Cut that off for me. Huh. The Bettor Fantasy Baseball Draft, part of our free baseball preview. Watch it now at bettorsports.com. All right. So he said, so if you finish last in the league, you have to do something stupid. Got it. Okay. We did have one league where we did that. The punishment was only followed through with one time, and these were all my oldest buddies, and the second guy just refused to do it. So we ended up, I don't know how he won that. Like, we didn't just make him do that or leave the league, but we were all too good of friends with him to like have that come between us. So we decided to get away with it. But the one year that we did have a punishment for last place, we had a buddy that had to take an extremely awkward photo shoot. And then he made coasters of all of the awkward photo shoot pictures. And everyone in the league got a set of the coasters for their homes. And they were amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed them. So that's the only league right now that I have been in that has a punishment. I shouldn't say that. There are other ones where they're like, you can be relegated and things like that. But as far as like public humiliation or different things like that, I don't do any other leagues like that. Although I would be open I would be open to being in one where last place got some sort of punishment, but no, I'm currently not in any leagues like that. Peter saying he's excited for baseball. My Mariners looking good this year. Yeah, Julio Rodriguez is the truth. He is a fantastic player. That's great. Still got the coaster. I saw one with a celebratory or a celebrity where they used to replace the person who came in last. That's funny. That is very funny. Yes, I do still have the coasters. I'll have to find them. I don't know exactly where they are. Peter, you probably don't even know who Julio Franco is. He's just so young. You just don't even know. I barely know who he is, to be honest. But all right. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, Dennis Bennett and what we have all been waiting for. Yes, the trades. We will get into specific trade questions with Dennis Bennett here on the Bettor Sports Network.
Monday Night Rants with Edward Rouse on Bettor Sports Network.
Do you believe in the Madden curse? Do you think that's a real thing?
I did. Now, I don't think it's as big of a deal anymore, but it was a real thing for a solid 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it was Sean Alexander, LaDainian Tomlinson, Peyton Hillis.
Well, LT was never on the cover. I know that.
Was he not? I thought he was one. Okay, well, you do know all the covers of everything.
Yeah, okay. So if you want, I could do this real quick. So Garrison Hurst is the first official Madden cover athlete, 1999. 2000, I believe they still put John Madden on the cover. And then 2001 is where it all started. So 2001, you have Eddie George. 2002, Dante Culpepper. 2003, Marshall Falk. 04, Michael Vick. 05, Ray Lewis, first defensive player on the cover.
Okay.
06, Donovan McNabb. 07, Sean Alexander.
Okay.
08, Vince Young. 09, Brett Favre.
Okay.
10 is a trick one because it's
No way you know.
and Larry Fitzgerald. 11, Drew Brees. 12, Peyton Hillis. 13, Calvin Johnson, I believe so.
You're right.
14,
No way you know all this.
14, also a trick question.
Uh-huh.
I believe that's the Madden 25 cover, and it's Barry Sanders, unless you got it for the new consoles, in which case Adrian Peterson
Oh my God.
was on the cover.
You're not cheating. You're not looking at.
Swear on my life. Swear on my life.
Okay. Keep on going.
15, you have Richard Sherman.
Okay.
16, hold on.
Oh.
16 is Odell Beckham.
Okay.
16. 17, now this is the one I get mixed up because 17 and 18 are back-to-back Patriots.
They are.
17, I think, is Gronk, and 18 is Brady.
You are correct.
19 is Antonio Brown.
Correct.
20, Patrick Mahomes.
Oh my goodness.
21, Lamar Jackson. 22, Brady Mahomes. 23, John Madden. Yeah, dude, I'm a cover nerd when it comes to this stuff.
We now know, but that was really impressive. I don't know how.
Thank you.
That's literally 29 of them or something like that. Wow, that is. You did not miss a single one, and you even got the special editions where they had two people on the covers.
Monday Night Rants on Bettor Sports Network. Nerds.
All right, we are back. We'll be joined by Dennis Bennett here momentarily. Before we do, though, another question that I thought I would address, because it's not specifically a trade question, but Get Your Popcorn Ready asks, is the Panthers, with the experienced coaching staff but no draft capital, or the Texans, with a few good pieces and all the draft capital, a better landing spot for future success? It's a great question. I do believe that the Carolina Panthers is the preferred destination. When you look at teams that are successful, fantasy assets that are successful, a lot of times they are tied to solid coaching staffs that put the best players in the best position to win. Newer unexperienced coaching staffs, which I think D'Amico Ryans, I think he's going to be really good. But I don't know anything about their offensive coordinator. We'll have to see. Obviously, he has San Francisco ties, but we don't know how he's going to perform. We don't know how he's going to call plays. So eventually, they'll get more draft assets. They will. They have some picks in the second round, things like that. So yes, would I prefer that they had more assets? Sure. But I think I would prefer the Panthers landing spot over the Texans landing spot at this current time. All right. Let's see. Wayne Bear Pig says, what are we doing with Burks? I was all in on him last year. Do I hold? How does he rank versus this year versus last year and versus this year's rookie wide receivers? So I've never been the biggest Treylon Burks fan. I think he is, and yeah, Dennis, we can have Dennis come on any second now. I've never been the biggest Burks fan. But that being said, I saw snippets that impressed me last year that I do think he will be a solid fantasy asset. But I'm not taking him, like I wouldn't trade him straight up for, I would rather have JSN, Johnston. After that, I might be willing. I like Zay Flowers quite a bit. That would probably be the range that I would be willing to take him against this year's class. Dennis Bennett, how's it going, buddy?
Man, it's going outstanding. It's had a whole slew of sirens out in the background. I was wondering, man, what's going on? Had to pull up the app, find out where my son was at because he's out taking his bandmates home. Luckily, he's clear across town, so he wasn't involved in anything. Then I found out today he had a speaker at school, and I was looking at a video on his Instagram account. Turns out the speaker at school was a producer for like Aerosmith and American Idol and all of these big bands. And I'm like, oh, well, hey, thanks for following my son's band on Instagram. Give him a little background. Caleb's starting the jazz performance program at OSU and stuff, whatnot. He was just writing me back saying, oh, it was very nice, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, oh. So I'm texting with this producer, trying to get my son some studio work so he can buy daddy a lake house.
There you go. Get one in the NBA, get another one in a big-time rock band.
That's right.
You're going to be living the dream, Dennis.
Dude, I'm trying. I'm like one of those horses that, I don't race well, but maybe I produce winners.
There you go. Peter asks, have you ever milked a cow, Dennis?
I have milked a cow. I actually worked on a dairy farm one year.
Did you?
I slipped and fell in cow shit more than once.
Ooh. And confirm with me, crazy hours usually working on a dairy farm.
Well, like way early. They want milked like
3-4 in the morning, right?
Exactly. They're ready. You hear them. They're like, hey, come get this. I'm full.
Yeah. That was I had a buddy offer to have me come work with him on his dairy farm, and I was like, no, I don't. I like sleeping too much. Like I have a better chance of still being awake. This is in high school, but I have a better chance of still being awake at 3:00 than I do like waking up at 3:00. Like,
man, I've spent some time on the cow farm. I baled hay where
I did do that.
Walking behind the tractor, throwing it up on the trailer there.
Good workout.
Where, it gets up there. You're throwing it up 12, 14 feet in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did do that. That's a good workout.
That was great for my allergies.
Ooh. Yeah, you got that stuff all up your nose. It's bad. Yep. It's bad. Well, enough cow talk and farm talk. Let's get to some questions here. So I'll prioritize any questions that are in the chat over the Discord, but if we don't have enough in the chat, I will go to the Discord. So here's one for you here. Oh, I can barely see it. All right. Mr. Blue Sky says, would you rather have Jared Goff or Brandon Cooks, Chase Edmonds, and the 311? So I'm assuming this is a super flex, but we'll answer it for both. Would you rather have Goff or Cooks, Edmonds, and 311?
So I don't think Edmonds has much run left. He's like headed into the Myles Gaskin territory of his career. He's going to be a bottom feeder on rosters for the next couple years. He may or may not end up getting some play for a few games because of injuries, but I'm just not there. 311, let's see, this year. So you're looking at guys like I've been taking it like at the 311. Who's that cat from Tennessee? Cedric Tillman, getting him in the late third, who I really like. I do like that. Who A.T. Perry's a guy I like, but I usually can get him in the fourth. So there's some good stuff out of the draft. Brandon Cooks, I feel like he's hidden his decline. He has surpassed his top end useful. Goff only has a couple more years that, unless something goes really, really good, I'm still going to go with Goff on this one.
So that's for both Superflex and 1QB.
1QB, I think I might take the depth because I can get, 1QB is a little more tricky because Edmonds is still not much, but I think Cooks is going to be flexible. And then you're getting somebody late. I think it's a lot closer. Goff is probably going to be your second QB, so it makes sense, I think, to add some depth. I might try to swap out Edmonds for maybe another pick.
Yeah, I think for me, it's easily Goff and Superflex. In 1QB, it's close. If you need a quarterback, I guess, but I'll take the gamble that Cook still has enough juice left to make it worth it. Armin R asks, should I offer JT for the 101 or the 102, 109, and Ramondre or Najee? So 102, 109, and Najee Harris or Ramondre Stevenson for 101. For me personally, if you offer, I would rather have Bijan than Jonathan Taylor. It's close, but Jonathan Taylor's going to his fourth year, whereas Bijan's going to his first year. So I would take him there. I think giving 102, 109, and like Najee Harris would be too much of an overpay for me, especially for a running back. Ramondre would be closer with those two assets, but that still feels like a bit more of an overpay than I'd like to do, but that's probably what it would take. So my favorite would be JT straight up for 101. What about you?
Yeah, I think if I'm going for the 10, I agree with you on the 4 years, JT being in. My concern with Bijan is we've seen head coaches do stupid stuff like not give Jonathan Taylor the ball as a rookie.
Sure.
And given the running back landscape, it seems that Bijan is going to land somewhere where there may not be a running back at his level, but there's a decent running back that some veteran head coach is going to say, well, I need to give this guy some carries too. And so for this year, if I'm like pushing for, I'm ready to go, give me JT all the way. But if I'm, on the border, I may go younger and go with Bijan. The other one, I mean, that's a lot of assets. It was 102, 109, and Ramondre for
101.
For 101.
Or you could replace Najee instead of Ramondre if you like him more or less. But I think Najee's worth more, so I would say Ramondre would be the
and even then, that still feels pretty steep for. I mean, you're giving up the shot at.
You're basically saying Gibbs, Zay Flowers, and Ramondre Stevenson for Bijan is basically what you're saying.
And that's Ramondre is going to have a good year this year. I like Gibbs. I think, I think if I've got the hots for Bijan, and I think he's my guy, I don't have an issue with it. But it is a steep price today. When you do that, you're hoping an overpay today is an underpay, in 6
Tomorrow.
months.
Yeah.
So it's a bold move. It takes cojones. I don't hate it. I'd have to be in the right mood to do it, though.
Gotcha. Yeah, for me, JT, I would do it. I don't think I would do it for the package. All right. Groovy Goober says 14 teams. So this is a deep super flex league. Those are tough. I'm in one or two of those. Super flex leagues with that many teams is tough. So 14 teams, super flex, badly need a QB. The guy at 102 is set at QB, but is extremely thin everywhere else. Would you trade the 101, 112, 208, and 312 for 102, a 24 first, 202, 302, and a 24 second? So that's a lot of asset. That's a lot of stuff. I don't know. You can see these as well, right? Right, Dennis?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So
that helps. But I would say here first, it's a lot to digest, but basically you're moving back one pick, but you needed a quarterback anyway. So that's not terrible. 112 and 202 isn't as close as it normally is. Normally there's only one pick in between those, but this is a 14 teamer. I feel like you're not getting quite enough back, honestly. Like, I get it that you want a quarterback anyway, but I feel like you should be getting a little bit more than you're actually getting here. What are your thoughts, Dennis?
I think they're trying to have too many pieces involved. Start with the 101 and the 102, and then can you get it done with two additional pieces, one on each side?
Yeah.
To me, that's where I'm going to try to go. So if it's the 101, if I'm trading away the 101 and the 112, and I get, let's say, the 102, a 24 first and the 202, get rid of all those other picks. To me, that makes more sense. And I'm not a guy that wants to trade a whole bunch of, I'm trying not to have 10 pieces in a trade anyways, but I think he's going in there and it's getting just a little bit complicated and convoluted. There's definitely a drop off from 101 to 102. I think getting the 24 first and the 202, the 112 and the 202 difference, I think the 24 first might make up. It feels fairly even. Maybe a little low, but to me, it seems to suit your team as opposed to trying to get additional 24 picks. You're getting into third rounders in a 14 team. It starts to thin out. So I'd try to shrink the number of assets we're dealing with and kind of make it fair in that regard. Yeah. I don't hate the move back because it's hard to pass on Bijan if you're at the 101.
Yeah, I get you. I want to make sure that if I'm giving up Bijan, you gotta pay for it. Like I'm not just giving him away. So I'm with you. If it could be 101 and 112 and I get 102, a 2024 first and 202, then I think I would be willing to do that. But yeah, once you start adding in all the other stuff, like none of that other stuff really moves the needle much for me. Peter asks, Kadarius Toney or the 2-4 and the 212 in a super flex standard scoring league? Is it close? I think that's very close. What do you think?
I'm not sure. Do I have the 204 and 212, Peter? Is that what this is about?
He's trying to subtly make you make a deal on the air.
No, I think I go back and forth with Toney. There are times where I think he's set up to be really successful. And there's other times I'm not sure I believe in him. I think that Kansas City's likely to go into the draft and take a receiver. I just released an article today where I went through Ian Cummings of the Draft Network, and he released a 7-round mock draft, and that he had A.T. Perry going to the Chiefs at the end of the second round. And, a 6'3", 200-pound, 4.47. Sometimes he makes, he makes ridiculous plays look easy, and easy plays look ridiculous sometimes.
Yep.
But he's a pretty good receiver, and he can be much more consistent than MVS. My fear is Tony ended up being a gadget guy, just because sometimes it's easy to say this guy can do so many different things, so I want to have him do so many things. I feel like the moves they made, that not bringing back Juju, kind of tells me that they like Sky Moore. They like Kadarius Toney. They're okay with MVS, and in part because they've got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. But I'm a little bit nervous about Toney just getting stuck in this gadget role. So I like him. I think I need to see more of him before I go out and start trying to acquire him. I think it's probably a fair deal, but I don't know that I'm willing to pay that price yet.
I think I would do it. Partly because we're at the point, at 2-4, yeah, there could be a player or two left on the board that are pretty nice. But at this point, I'm going for ceiling. Like that's what I'm going for at that point. And to get a guy that has crazy ceiling, crazy bust potential too, I think I would roll the dice there. I think that would be the range that I would be comfortable with. So it's close, but I think I'd be willing to roll the dice there. Joshua asks, contender, 12-team Superflex PPR, start 9 guys. Could use another wide receiver, looking at Keenan Allen due to the affordability. What 23 pick is he worth? My guess is probably an early to mid second at this point, because you only have a year or two left, more than likely. And yeah, because I'm trying to think, if I'm on the opposite side of it and I'm giving away, what would I be comfortable getting back? And I think I would probably, I think an early to mid second is probably the right range. What do you think, Dennis?
This is a classic case of what would I buy for and what would I sell for? And there's about a half to 2/3 of a round difference in that price. Like I'd sell him for an early-ish 203, 204, but I probably wouldn't buy him for more than a 208, 209. Okay. So I get his value and productivity, but I'm concerned about the impending drop off. He's an older wide receiver, just reworked his deal to give the team cap. And when a lot of times as teams start to rework these big deals they signed earlier, it kind of works to offset the dead cap. And at some point, they're getting the axe. So I don't know how invested I want to get in him. Buying at the 2.7, sure. Selling at the 2.3 is probably where I'd be at.
Sounds about right. Andrew asks, 12-man league, 1 quarterback, A.J. Dillon in 111 or Miles Sanders? This seems like a classic rebuild versus like all-in team. What do you think?
So I love where Miles Sanders landed.
Oh, yeah.
I think so. When I look at what Carolina is doing, they signed Adam Thielen. Is he going to go out and catch 90 balls for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns this year? Probably not. But he's the veteran in that wide receiver room. They added Hayden Hurst at tight end, who's an okay playmaker, does well. Miles Sanders, they're going to add. I think we all believe C.J. Stroud is walking in there as the QB1 from day one. I know they brought in Andy Dalton. I think Dalton is going to be the backup. There was no, you're going to start for a while. It's CJ's game, I think. And I think they add another receiver, whether in free agency, another veteran, whether through free agency or maybe they use their second round pick on a wide receiver. I think maybe Zay Jones or Zay Flowers or Josh Downs may fall to them. Jalen Hyatt might be there. Some of these guys that are in the tier 2, top of tier 3 might be available till them. And they've got a decent offensive line. I was looking at this chart Ben Baldwin put out a few days ago, and basically what he did is he took the RLAD's depth charts and said, based on what these depth charts are, he ranked all 32 offensive lines, and Carolina was 4th. And so that presents well for a rookie quarterback.
That's surprising.
He's not going to probably have an elite wide receiver, but he's going to have a decent enough wide receiver core. So Sanders had a really good year last year. So I'm not as high on A.J. Dillon as I was, and the 111 and Dillon feels a little bit high, but I think I'm at the point in the season right now where I'm like, yeah, I want to make that trade.
Well, and he just established that he is a top contender. And I think it's a perfect move for either side. Like, if you're a contender, Sanders is the guy to go get. He's going to be one of the least expensive workhorse running backs that we're going to have out of all of these guys. If you're in rebuild, you get a slightly younger running back. Not much, but slightly younger running back in Dillon. Plus, you get the 111, so you can kind of reinvest that pick. So I think it makes sense all the way around. But yes, I would do that as a contender. All right. T. Norvell says, deal on the board. It's a 1 QB, 12-team league. I have Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. I traded T-Law, 202, and a 24 first for Tua, DJ Moore, and 104. Who wins it? Would give me the 101, 102, and 104 in a slight rebuild. Or no 24 first and no DJ Moore. So what side of that do you like? T-Law 202 and a 24 first, or Tua and DJ Moore in the 104?
So this is the conundrum in a 1 quarterback league, is you have 2 likely top 8 quarterbacks, and you can only play one of them. Mm-hmm. Now, it's great if one of them gets injured, but you're not building your roster to plan on an injury. So I'm okay making this trade and moving Trevor Lawrence because I like Joe Burrow plenty. He's got great weapons. They're building that team around him. Getting the 104 in a 1 quarterback league, it's going to put you in a position to get either the number 1 wide receiver or the number 3 running back. Maybe 2 wide receivers go before you and you end up with Gibbs. But you're looking at maybe Charbonnet or Jackson Smith and Jigba there at 104. And I think if you're in a slight rebuild and you've got a contenders team, that's a good place to be. I like the move. Did you win? I don't know. I think if you have Tua, you probably need to get a 3rd quarterback. That's just where I'm at with him right now. If I have him on my rosters, I want insurance. Even if he's my number 2, I still want the insurance just in case, whether it's his backup or, the QB 28 in the league, whoever you deem that to be, Desmond Ridder or Baker Mayfield or somebody like that. I think you need to have that insurance if Tua is one of your quarterbacks. I like the trade. I don't know that one side wins more than the other. You're getting a pretty good draft pick. DJ Moore, I think he's a bona fide stud. You're giving up T-Law and a 24 first. I think it's good for both sides. These are the best kind of trades.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty fair overall. The DJ Moore kind of makes up for, losing T-Law. And, he's kind of the difference between that and the 202 there. My biggest question, though, is he said it's a rebuild team. While I like the move, and I probably would have done it as well, is this his 24 first? Because if you're a rebuild team and you're giving away your first, I hate giving away my first in rebuilds.
Well, he said slight rebuild, so I'm going to say he's probably at the worst middle of the pack.
Maybe. That would be the one piece of information I'd want to know. But overall, I do like his side in a 1 QB league. All right. Ian says, would you trade Josh Allen and Joe Mixon for Justin Fields and the 101? 12-team PPR Superflex. I have Allen, but could use an upgrade at running back.
It's hard to trade Josh Allen. And as an Ohio State homer, I believe big things are ahead for Justin Fields. But I'm looking to get out of the Joe Mixon business. And so I think I'd make this trade.
I would easily make this trade. I like Josh Allen, and he's been one of the best, if not the best quarterback over the past 3-4 seasons. But Bijan Robinson and Justin Fields, you're basically getting two guys that are going to be taken either at the very end of the first round or at the very beginning of the second round in a startup. Mixon for me is very meh. Like, yeah, I'll hold on to him on a contender, but yeah, he's not somebody that I don't see him as somebody that has much value right now. So I would easily make this trade. I get it. It's tough to give up Allen in a super flex, but you could be getting, and maybe not, but you could be getting somebody that's going to give you similar production and you get Bijan out of it. So I would absolutely do this deal. Just to update our last one, Norvell says he has 324 firsts. So that's good to have in a rebuild. And he's giving back that guy's first. So, which I like that even more because then it's not impacting how big of a rebuild my rebuild is, whether it's, I'm in, bottom 5, bottom 3, I'm in last place. Really doesn't matter. It does. It depends where your pick is, but if you end up with the last place team and you don't have your pick, there's nothing more devastating than that. Better Boss says he's also making the Fields move. Twin is asking 1 QB. He has 101, 103, 104, 106, and 110. That's how you rebuild there, folks. Oh, and 112. Josh Allen. No running backs. Garrett Wilson, Jahan Dotson, Jameson. I'm guessing that's J-Mo. Would that be Jameson Williams?
Yeah, that's how I read it.
Okay. Chris Godwin, Pat Fryermuth, David Njoku. If Gibbs goes 102, do I take JSN, Quentin Johnston, and then best player available at 106? So, I mean, always best available. That's for me. It's always best available. So, chances are for me, it probably would be those two receivers there. And then, yeah, you're probably looking at either, in a 1 QB, either Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, or Zach Charbonnet, maybe, fingers crossed, Tajay Spears. But, somebody like that that's going to be kind of in that next tier is what I would be doing. Same with you, I assume, Dennis?
Well, if he goes Bijan at 101 and Gibbs goes at number 2, and then he goes JSN and Quentin at 3 and 4, then you're looking at Charbonnet and or Jordan Addison at 5 and 6. And so if Charbonnet goes, I think I'm okay taking Tajay Spears at 106 to give me that running back. It sounds like he wants to get another running back in the mix here. I even don't know that I would be upset if he reached for Charbonnet at 104 if he thinks that Charbonnet is in a good position. The challenge is that so many of these backfields are split nowadays that it might need to that you just may end up having to go with wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm with you. So always best player available, but remember, you can always trade that pick. You could trade 106 and 110 and get yourself a pretty solid running back. So I'm I'm fine with that. That would maybe even be something I would be actively looking to do, especially if my team would be pushing contender status, which if you have Bijan and another solid running back with guys like Wilson, Dotson, JMO, like all of a sudden you've got a solid core. So I think that's what I would be looking to do if I need a running back. If the best available one is on the board and you like it, then cool. But if not, then just trade for a running back is what I would be looking to do. Something like that. Sedative Fork says, I was in a startup and I traded Fields 10 minutes before he got DJ Moore. He could have probably gotten a little bit more, but it happens.
Yeah, it's those are the breaks sometimes.
It is. I was the guy that traded for Andrew Luck a week before he retired. So that's how it goes sometimes. All right. Andrew asks, in a 1 QB league, 6-point passing touchdown, I'm assuming, what's the range that you should target quarterback? Have Burrow, but Mike White is the only other quarterback. I don't know that I'm necessarily targeting a quarterback at that point. What I would probably be doing is, if one I like falls into a good range, so let's say, I can get Anthony Richardson at 202, then yeah, I would pull the trigger. If I can get one of those quarterbacks mid-second round, sure, I'd pull a trigger. But if it's getting too expensive, then trade for a solid veteran. Trade for Jared Goff. Trade for Kirk Cousins. Trade for Derek Carr. Trade for somebody like that, because I'm not wanting to use valuable draft capital to get a backup quarterback in a 1 QB league. What are your thoughts, Dennis? Am I crazy, or am I onto something?
No, we're in version 7.0 of our 1 QB mock drafts, and we went from having at least one quarterback go in the first round to now the quarterbacks have kind of dropped back into the second round, where I think they're probably more appropriately priced. If you love Stroud, or you love Young, or you love Richardson, going for them in the early second, 202, 203, 204, then I think, I'm okay with that. You're weighing it against, running backs that are going to be in committees at the best at that point, tier 3 wide receivers. And so if you get a chance to grab Anthony Richardson and you think he's going to be a stud, or CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, who are likely stepping into day one starting roles, I don't hate that in the first half of the second round.
Yeah. Sedative Fork actually has one on here. I said I would prioritize the stream here. So Sedative Fork, I have a 12-team Superflex league, but you have to start 2 tight ends. Start 11 guys. What's the highest you are drafting a tight end in the 2023 rookie draft? Whew. I don't play in any 2 tight end leagues. Do you, Dennis?
I do.
All right. Maybe you'd be better suited to answer this.
But I'm off drafting tight ends in rookie drafts. I'm all about let somebody else draft them, sit them on their taxi squad for 2 years, and then I'll just trade for them once they start producing. So I think wherever you think you want to draft a rookie tight end, draft a wide receiver or running back and go trade for a tight end. Go trade, tier 2 of tight ends is about 12 tight ends deep. Go trade for Dawson Knox or Pat Freiermuth or Hayden Hurst or one of these guys that's going to be cheaper, and take your shot on a higher upside position like running back or wide receiver. That's just me.
I can understand that. I can totally understand that. But on the flip side, then you're having to pay a premium once those guys hit to get them. So it's, do you want to take the gamble with the draft capital early, or do you want to wait a couple years and get a more sure thing, but you're going to have to pay quite a bit more to get him, especially in a 2 tight end league. So while I don't disagree that I would probably prefer to just trade, if I'm answering the question to how it was asked, if I am starting or if I am drafting tight ends, I would probably be looking still after the top couple quarterbacks, after Bijan, after Gibbs, but anywhere around 5 or 6, I would probably be open to looking at Kincaid and Michael Mayer. Like, I would be open to that because, well, and after JSN, I really believe in JSN as well. So yeah, 6, 7, that would probably be where I'd be comfortable in a 2 tight end league.
So you have Kincaid then probably in your overall tier 3.
Yeah.
So,
Somewhere around
if you're drafting tight ends, I agree. I don't. That's probably where I would be looking. That's just a strategy I've gone away from.
Yeah, no, I get it. Peter says good night to the nerd herd, and then put in parentheses cow reference. So he wanted to make sure that was put in there. I know that we've been having some technical issues with Dennis. So unfortunately, I think he's going to be signing off the rest of the night. But we will get him back on next week and enjoy our time with him. Twin says that he managed to get Goddard and Mark Andrews in a 2 tight end, 14 team startup. So not only is it 2 tight ends, but 14. So there are 28 tight ends being started every single week, where in most leagues it's 12, and it can still be a challenge. And you were able to get Goddard and Andrews. That is huge. I'm sure people would pay a crazy premium to get him. So a couple other questions that I see in the Discord. Once again, feel free to ask any questions here in the chat, and I'll get to those. But a couple of the other ones here. Let's go with this one here. Would you give Debo, Tyreek, and Cousins for Justin Herbert? So this is Dirty Hippie Farmer. He's now I'm assuming this is super flex. I would do it. It definitely feels like a slight overpay to do it. But at the same time, it is really difficult to get those young quarterbacks. I mean, to get anybody like that, and if anything, you're getting a slight discount now on Justin Herbert compared to where you were having to, what you were having to do a few years, just even last year, in order to get Justin Herbert. So you are getting him at a slight discount now. So I would say that I would do it. But it would be tough because giving up 2 receivers like that is really difficult. But to be clear, I would be doing this if either A, that I had the depth to do it at the position, or B, I'm in a rebuild and I just want to get strong at the quarterback position. All right. Ian4444 says Superflex tight end premium traded Jamison Williams and the 2023 301 for a likely top 4 2024 first and Elijah Moore. Which side do you like better? That's a really fair deal. But if I think that can get in the top 4, as good as Jamison Williams is, that top 4 of next year's draft is looking ridiculous. It is looking absolutely ridiculous. And I like Elijah Moore too. So I think you're getting a nice little replacement for Jamison Williams. So I would make that move. Even if I thought, it's going to be top 6, I would still probably make that move. So I think that's a good deal for Ian there. Superflex tight end premium draft. All right, let's go to Reigns. 12-team Superflex tiered PPR, start 11, traded down a bunch in the startup. And my main assets are Tua and Brees, 101, 301, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 201, 203, and 3 2024 first. Would you package picks to move up 4 or 5 for JSN, or just stay put with more shots at players, yeah, I would definitely consider packaging, like 109 and 112 to try to move up to 104, 105, and get JSN. Even if you had to throw in, 203 as well, I would definitely be willing to do this. Andrew's asking, how do we view Pollard as a contender? Pretty good. I think we're viewing him pretty good right now. Oh, just messed up my hair. Look at me. Silly. I think he has a legitimate shot to be a running back 1 this year. Now, the slight twinge in the back of my mind is, what's Jerry Jones going to do in the draft? Because I would not rule out the possibility of him taking Bijan Robinson, a kid as talented as him, to replace Ezekiel Elliott that is from the state of Texas. Like, that seems like has Jerry written all over it. Even a guy, if they brought in a Zach Charbonnet or a Tank Bigsby, that would cut in. But I still think as long as it's not Bijan, I think he's going to be at or very darn close to being running back 1 this season. If Bijan's there, everything's out the window. So that's kind of how I would view that situation right now. All right, guys, we are down to basically the last minute here. So I had a fantastic time on the show today. Loved getting a chance to talk with Dan about the all of the prospects that he's been covering, from Michael Mayer to Rashee Rice and Anthony Richardson. So I really appreciate him coming on. If you get a chance, tune in to the Dynasty Nerds YouTube that night. He's going to be doing a live stream. I will actually be here the first night of the draft. So even though I'm not doing your traditional live stream, that's basically what I'm going to be doing on draft night, is I will be live streaming from the Bettor Sports Network platform. So feel free to hop on with me. We will talk all things NFL, all things draft in that time. Also, thank you to Dennis for coming on. And unfortunately, like I said, he had some technical issues, which we all deal with at times. So appreciate him jumping on the show, hanging out with us for a few hours. Appreciate all of you guys asking questions. Josh, thank you. Appreciate that. Lots of great interaction. Hopefully we see this continue. I know it's much more convenient for you guys now that we are streaming on the YouTubes. So hopefully we get a chance to hang out and talk more and more each and every week. Once again, you can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Price. Connect with me there. All kinds of good stuff going on at Dynasty Nerds. We'll see you guys back here next